All right, I've got a special fix for you today. The side kick is a fairly straightforward kick, but it has a couple of problems that kind of crop up if you don't correct them from the get-go. And I understand, right? As teachers, we don't always put like absolute perfection on the front end with the students because that's too much to ask too soon. But there are a couple of things that we need to make sure that we're doing. And one of the biggest problems that I see with the side kick is the fact that people will almost chip in the heel, almost like they're doing a round kick with the heel, as opposed to actually doing a side kick. Now, the side kick is a thrusting kick, right? In Savate, we call it a chassé latéral. And, it is meant to be a straight line drive, as every bit as much a kick down the door kick as the front thrust kick. And you'll notice I use the term thrust kick, not push kick. Push hits do have their place. I don't like to teach them as the baseline. And the same thing is true here. Actually chipping in the side kick or kind of a heel-oriented round kick can be useful for certain targets in certain situations, but that's not how we teach a side kick, and we want to make sure that that is not what is coming across to the student. And the simplest fix for that is making sure that we understand that the end of our weapon, the heel, is in line with our termination point, which is actually going to be our hip. You see, when we teach snapping kicks, we teach to aim with the knee because the termination point is the extension up to the point of the knee, right? Your leg doesn't bend past that. The problem is with a side kick or even a front thrust kick, our termination point is no longer the knee because we are extending the hips at the same time. The extension of the hips and the knee work together. And that actually means that the termination point is now, so you can see it here, the termination point now is in line with my hip. If I do this, it is no longer a thrusting kick. It is a hinging kick. A thrusting kick requires me to extend the hip. And that being the case, if my heel is extending towards the point of my hip, then I have to aim with my hip, not with my knee. So there's a couple of ways to get your heel on target correctly. And I'm not going to go into kind of whether you angle the foot outward or keep it vertical, more Shaolin style, whatever. Technically speaking, in Savate, traditionally, they teach to angle the whole body forward so that you have a straight line drive. I personally feel that actually compromises balance too soon. I'm not a fan of that. Stephen Wonderboy Thompson loves it because he feels like it allows him to get the kick off faster, as opposed to getting it stuffed because his leg is vertical and technically off the line. I get it. Both have merits. Now, if you guys have been around with me for a while, you know that I actually like to corkscrew my kicks in because I want all of my strikes to have a fairly common origin point, meaning that my opponent is going to have to guess what I'm throwing, because the more my opponent has to guess, the harder it is going to be for them to defend. Now, that's not necessarily something that you teach to a beginner, but if I can corkscrew it in, so I bring it out just like I'm going to come in and do a hinging front kick, or do a thrusting front kick, or do a round kick, I also want to be able to corkscrew the side kick in. And all that requires, because my heel is already on that point, all that requires is me to pivot around that point as it goes. And so the whole leg is making this kind of upward arc, but the geometry of it is changing and corkscrewing in and giving me something that is a little bit harder to read. From a Wing Chun perspective, that's kind of like using the principle of like twisting the pole in with the thrust. There's reasons for that beyond just arbitrarily twisting it. But I would say from a Wing Chun perspective, even though that's not really how we do side kicks in Wing Chun, that would be kind of a Wing Chun reference point for throwing the kick that way. But traditionally, when we teach the kick, most of the time, what we end up doing is we teach the student to bring themselves up. And sometimes we just have them start in a side stance, right? And then they just pick up the leg and go. That's fine. But if you're doing it from a fighting stance, and look, we're just gonna go off the rear leg. Most of the time, we tell them to come up in this line, or if you're angling it, we tell them to come up in this line so that everything is on line, right? That your heel and your hip, the termination points line up. So kind of like front sight, rear sight, getting everything lined up, getting the right sight picture, and then you just have a line drive to the target. And so we bring it up, everything's in line, and then we unleash it. Now that's fine, but that's slow. And that's why I prefer the corkscrew version. But we don't teach it because it's the be all and end all. We teach it that way because it allows the student to make sure that they're getting everything on that line. I will actually overdo it and tell the students to make sure that they cross the center line and almost allow the foot to chip in backwards. Only because, this is a trick, only because I know that they're going to try to shorten the movement. So if I make them overdo it and I know they're going to move less, then they end up somewhere in the middle. Now here's the problem with tricks. If you use a trick to teach somebody, you have to eventually correct the trick. Otherwise, you end up leaving a flaw in there, okay? So using a trick as a means of overcorrection to compensate for the student is fine, but it does need to be corrected eventually so that they understand fully what's going on. So yeah, the biggest thing that I want to make sure, right, the whole point of this video is just make sure that they're not aiming with the knee and chipping that kick in. That's not a side kick. It's not going to have the thrusting, knock down the door power that it needs. And it's not even really a side kick. It's a round kick with the heel as the weapon instead of the toe, the ball of the foot, the instep, the shin. You know, and again, perfectly valid in some contexts, but it's not a side kick. And it's not this side kick. All right, that is enough for today, and I will talk to you guys later. Good journey. Thanks for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, share this with your friends or anybody else who might be interested in this kind of content. If you happen to be in the Metro Phoenix area, come in for a class or just stop in to say hi. We'd love to meet you. Definitely check out our socials and our website that has all of our contact information and all of the other relevant information. And more than anything, check out our Substack. Our Substack will be containing all of the links that we use to cite and reference in our videos, as well as exclusive training content that will be available for premium members. Memberships are cheap, but you can also sign up for free, and we do have articles for free, and we will have more free articles available for you. It is a fantastic platform for what we're doing here, and we hope to see you over there. So I will talk to you guys later, and look out for the next one. Good journey.